When you look at the post office, you get the impression it's just giving up, don't you? The decision today, announced in the newspapers, that the post office is pausing its development of the intended Horizon replacement known as New Branch IT, NBIT program, underscores the post office's struggle to modernise, to regain trust, and to replace the rubbish after one of the UK's largest miscarriages of justice. It hasn't paid off the people who have been hurt. It hasn't restored their money. It hasn't returned the money it stole. And it hasn't replaced the system that is faulty. The Horizon system, infamous, notorious for its role in wrongly convicting 900 sub-postmasters of fraud and related crimes due to flawed data, remains in place as the post office shelves its ambitious but problematic NBIT project. And starts closing down major post offices around the country. You get the impression, just looking from a distance, that the post office is preparing simply to give up, to close up shop. And I don't know what other conclusions we can draw. I'd be really interested to have your comments on this. It's like Cineworld. The other day I went to the cinema and I wasn't allowed entry because it was for some little group called Unlimited, and there were 10 people in the cinema or so. And I thought, this is absurd. It's advertised on the website, but there's this sneaky little Unlimited sign. I don't know what Unlimited is. And there wasn't really any effort to sell me the Unlimited option until I'd had so much no that I just wanted to walk out. There's this patina of despair over these British businesses. We need to help cinema. We need to help the post office. But, you know, when you're standing in a queue for the post office and you have this miserable effort to try and find stamps, or to try and find the other day I was trying to get postcards. Don't exist in the post office. Well, where else are you going to get postcards? Oh, try W.H. Smith. The post office used to be a place where you could find things which would be to do with post. You can't anymore. You're directed off to W.H. Smith. And the post which is delivered late. There was a letter I received about a year ago, which was telling me about a friend who had died, and her funeral was on the Thursday. I received this letter on that Thursday morning. There was no possibility. By the time I received the letter, I think it was at 11 o'clock. The funeral was at 11 o'clock. The letter had been posted 10 days earlier, first class. And when you get that sort of service, and I contacted my local delivery office, and they said, oh, we've got problems with the people who are supplying your route. Well, who cares? You're not doing your job. If you can't rely on the system is useless. The same sort of thing could be said about the NHS. You can't rely on it. Therefore, the system is useless. And it doesn't matter if every so often it does something amazing. So what? These are supposed to be the bedrocks of our modern society. You can rely on them. But you can't be sure when there's an advert. You can't be sure when there's notice. I mean, there's plenty of emails all over the place telling us that what's happening. They're very good at social media. The post office, the cinemas, the NHS. But they're not very good at delivering. I was sent off for a completely pointless blood check when I thought I had a revival of cancer. Completely pointless blood check to see whether or not I had anemia. What's extraordinary is my local GP has never followed up that pointless blood check and told me what the result is. Never. I mean, it's now over 3 months, I think. So back to the post office and this NBIT project, initially supported by significant funding, including £103 million from the Department for Business and Trade in 2023. This programme was part of a broader strategic platform modernisation programme. So what's the point of that now? We've just wasted another £103 million. This is where the black hole is, isn't it? It's in these ridiculous gesture politics that aren't going to go anywhere. Not unlike HS2. Doesn't quite get to London, doesn't quite get to Birmingham. It ends up a street or two away from Birmingham New Street. How do you get from one place to the other? Oh, you walk, you get a taxi. Well, by the time you've done your walk or got your taxi, you wasted as much time as you actually saved on the high-speed link. There's something deeply wrong with the way we run things. The NBIT programme for the post offices was supposed to rectify the failings of Horizon and provide sub-postmasters with a reliable, intuitive system. But as the development proved slower than expected and incapable of processing tasks at the required pace, handling only domestic mail in tests, disillusionment grew, and reports now suggest the costs have spiralled from 180 million to a possible 1 billion, contributing to the post office's decision to pause the project. Well, when you've spent that amount of money, you should follow it through. And you should make it work. The shelving of NBIT comes as sub-postmasters continue to experience unexplained financial discrepancies with Horizon, as highlighted by a YouGov survey where nearly 70% of respondents reported such instances since 2020. And this statistic underlines the problem that trust in these systems remain fractured. And the bureaucratic systems that underpin the NHS are chaotic, to the extent that somebody said they had to double check my video in the NHS when I was being treated for cancer. At one point, I got documentation back which addressed me as Mrs. and consistently so. You know, if you make these silly mistakes, and I say, oh yes, this is just a bureaucratic error. Yeah, but then how many other bureaucratic errors are there? And yet, when I asked for copies of all my documentation, because I thought my original documentation was covered in blood, subtle changes have been made to the details. And I'm now able to get the original documentation and compare the two, and they're so wildly different. If somebody can spend the time doctoring the reports to that extent, then why can't they get it right in the first place? Are they so desperate to avoid litigation that they will indulge in what is bluntly deceit? The shelving of NBIT is all about the Horizon errors and failure. And Richard Trinder, of the Voice of the Postmaster, who trialled the new technology, says that the initial promise was there, but he said that there were practical shortcomings. Well, sort out the practical shortcomings. Meanwhile, the hardware meant for NBIT, including screens and printers, sits unused, and and is again a further wasted investment. In the light of this, the Post Office plans to roll out yet another new hardware without the anticipated software improvements. So using Horizon, but with new computer terminals, a move viewed by some as at least partially positive given the long-standing frustrations with current outdated equipment. But while new printers might have been praised for their speed, the absence of a comprehensive software overhaul means the Post Office's long-term IT modernization is in limbo and in doubt. And we cannot trust it. And I don't want to go to a post office where I think every action I make could incriminate the person on the other side of the counter, who already looks miserable. Ultimately, the decision to continue with the Horizon system prolongs a technological and a reputational dilemma that has haunted the post office for decades. And it's not enough. Start finger pointing and saying this person, that person, this company, that company is responsible. It's about fixing the issue. We spend too much time apportioning blame in this country and not enough time making things work. We used to be good at making things work, at repair. Now we just want to say who's to blame and shrug our shoulders and say we'll go and get a new one. That's not real life. That's laziness. The Post Office needs to navigate the path forward. It needs to seek alternatives that can finally replace Horizon. It needs to restore confidence and support its essential network without succumbing to the failures of past efforts to develop. It needs to look to the future. But everything in me tells me it's decided to throw in the towel. As I say, please let me know what you think. And if you work for the Post Office, I'd be really interested to hear from you. This is the most depressing news. And it doesn't seem to be getting out into all areas of mainstream media. There's a very interesting article in the Financial Times, but the majority of the mainstream media seems to be ignoring it. I think it's an important story.